Hey everybody, welcome back to the Maniac. Thanks for visiting my channel again. I'm going to show you today how to do a super simple, beautiful goodbye to Valentine's Day manicure. We're using dip 137, You Make My Heart Glow from Sparkle & Co. and an accent nail of Charcoal Fierce. I wanted something super simple. It occurred to me that I hadn't done a basic dip video. We're always trying new techniques and I love doing that. But for those of you who are just getting started, this is going to be a really easy to follow tutorial of how to do a very simple dip if you're just getting started in the dip powder world. So let's check it out. All right, so today's mani is super simple. We're doing one solid color, which is dip 137 from Sparkle & Co. You Make My Heart Glow, and dip 124, which is called Charcoal Fierce, as an accent on our ring finger. So we're gonna jump right in. And as always, I've already prepped my nails. I did use step 1 Sparkle & Co. pH prep to dehydrate and prep the nail. I also used the Sparkle & Co. Luxe Peel. So this is a latex base that is supposed to make it a lot easier to remove the manicures. I just got this the other day. I have not tried it yet and I'm super excited to see how it works. So we will report back about that next week with our next manicure, which I'm super excited about. I've got something cool planned. So we're gonna go ahead and do our accent, the Charcoal Fierce, and then we're gonna do 2 of the You Make My Heart Glow. We're gonna use our base, and we'll start with this accent nail here, the Charcoal Fierce. Now this is real simple application today, nothing fancy, but I just wanted to kind of do something real basic so that any of you who are brand new and beginners to dipping, you know, can start out here. You don't have to go straight into, you know, doing anything crazy. But so we've applied a thin layer of our base, which is step number 2 for Sparkle & Co. And the base is basically what makes the powder stick to the nail. So you want to make sure and put thin layers as even as you can. And then to get really clean lines, I always just kind of go around the edge of my cuticle with this orange wood stick so that I can keep a nice clean line away from my cuticles. You do not want the powder to touch the cuticle because you can't really file it sloping down that way, which causes lifting once it starts to grow out. So we've got our Charcoal Fierce there. You can see it's a little lighter here, probably because I did that side first and then I was talking for a minute. So the base probably dried a little, but that's okay because we're gonna go in for another coat. And again, I don't wanna get too close right up to my cuticle, but not on it. Make sure we get a nice even coat. And anytime it's, you know, lumpy or looks kind of off, don't worry about that because we're gonna be filing this down. You know, we're gonna buff it out and file it down before we finish. So we'll get a nice smooth surface there. So see, now we've got all bases covered, got great coverage there all the way around. So I'm just, again, going around with my orange wood stick to make sure this is not touching on my cuticle here. With all the glitters, I kind of pat them down just to give them a little help getting smooth. And then whenever I do dip flat color or any kind of glitter, I always put a dip of clear over top. And that's just so when I buff, I'm not scratching off or buffing off the actual glitter. This is especially important with like chunky glitters. Glitter, when it's colored especially, like it can scratch. And so if you have a colored glitter, for example, in this case it wouldn't be too big of a deal because we're using Charcoal Fierce, which kind of has a like silver gray
look to it. But if you were using a colored glitter like a red glitter or a pink glitter and you scratch it, it turns silver. So it can really mess up your manicure look. So you can see I've got some glitter stuck. I'm just wiping that on just a paper towel that I have sitting over here. I try and always wipe my brushes if I can in between dips. My solidify, my glossy, it doesn't matter. I always try and give it just a little swoosh on the paper towel just so that it doesn't contaminate my liquids because they can turn each other yucky. Okay, so we've got that clear dip on there. Give a little brush around the edges there. Okay. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and now move on to our 2 red fingers, and we'll do those 2 at the same time, one right after the other. So again, we're gonna get nice and close to the cuticle, but not on the cuticle. You don't wanna leave a big pool of base next to the cuticle either because it'll clump up on the sides there. You don't want that. So we're gonna go dip 1 into our You Make My Heart Glow. And the number of dips you do really depends on a couple things, how good your coverage is. When I first started, I always had a really hard time getting the base all the way to the edge, but not like on top of my cuticle. I've had lots of practice now, so you can see that I've got it close to the cuticle, but not on the cuticle, and that's really important. The more dips you have, the thicker your nails are gonna be. Now we are gonna buff this down a little bit, so I don't mind if it gets too, but I hate it when my nails are super thick. So I don't want it to be very, very thick. Some people dip their nails thick because they need that much more strength. I was reading a post by a woman who works on a farm, and she just needs her nails to be super thick. You know, they looked beautiful, but it bothers me to the touch, like if I touch my nails, if it's too thick. So, you know, you'll figure out what is important to you, because these flat or shimmer colors that are not glittery, they tend to be a little bit thinner. So I don't worry so much about the thickness because it's not really gonna get too thick unless we're putting, you know, 5, 6 layers on there. So for our red today, we're gonna do 2 dips of color and then the clear on top so we can buff that out without messing up any of the color. So we brush that off. You wanna make sure you just really lightly brush any excess with any kind of fluffy brush you have. And then we're gonna go in for our clear dip, which will be our last step on this nail. And you can do these, you know, 1 and then 1, or if you're doing your whole hand like all the same color, you can definitely do, you know, a dip on each nail. You know, dip red, second coat red, and then clear, clear. So it just depends how your timing goes. So okay. All right, so that one's ready to go. Move on to our next red. I'm really excited to see how that peel base that I was telling you about works out. My least favorite thing is removing my dip. I love how strong it is, but because it's so strong, it takes acetone to get it off, obviously. And it just, sometimes it takes so long to take it off. I have a couple different methods for removing, just depending on how I'm feeling. My newest favorite is using finger caught, so I'll link that in the card that you're seeing right now and in the show notes so that you can link to that real quick and see how I remove my dip most of the time. Okay, so this is dip number 2 of You Make My Heart Glow. Really beautiful red. This was a Valentine's edition to the Sparkle & Co. lineup, which I love. They put out usually like 2 new dip colors a month, and then this was for Valentine's Day specifically, so that's always exciting. Okay, so we're gonna go in for our last clear here. And again, that is just to kind of protect the dip because we're gonna buff it out. And so you don't wanna start buffing off all the color. So we just put a nice dip of clear over top just to give that a little protection. Okay. All right, so now that we've got all our dips done, we're gonna go ahead and just make sure we brush off the excess here. We're gonna go ahead and hit that with some Solidify, which is step number 3 in the Sparkle & Co. liquid lineup. And that is gonna harden that dip and allow us to buff it without ruining it. Okay. So real quickly, when we're talking about buffing these out, I do use an efile with a medium grit carbide bit that I got off of Amazon. I'll link both of these down in the show notes for you. I am not a professional nail tech. I say this all the time, but I have practiced and done my nails for quite some time myself. So if you don't have an e-file, don't want to use an e-file or any of that, you can definitely use a buffing block. They have, you know, the bigger ones at Sally's. Polar blocks are popular. This buffing block, Sparkle & Co. does sell a buffing block on their website as well. That is very good. I like that a lot. Just, you know, whatever you're most comfortable with, that's the important part. So when we are buffing, and whether you're doing this, again, with an e-file or with a regular buffer, you want to make sure that what you're doing is we're going to smooth out these edges, both the sidewall and along the cuticle. And you want to kind of, you know, get it to so that it kind of gradually comes up, you know, just like your nail does from the cuticle. And that's going to also help keep it from lifting. So if you leave it real chunky right there, you're not going to be able to, when it grows out, or I'm sorry, it's going to get stuck on things, because if it's really thick and it grows away from the cuticle that's protecting it, then it's sticking up and your hair gets stuck in there and things like that. It's really irritating. So I just make sure that I do a good sweep here. You know, I'm not pushing too hard, just gently going over so that I'm creating that nice gradual rise from the cuticle up to the free edge of my nail. And you want to do that on both sides. And that'll just help keep it nice and smooth. And so, as I mentioned, this is why we put the clear dip on, because we're buffing over top of this, and we'd basically be buffing off that charcoal fierce right now if it weren't for the clear dip. So now what I want to do is I want to make sure that I am checking that how my nail is shaped. So if you're looking at it this way down towards the nail, you want to make sure that the shape is how you want it. So there's a nice curve to it. There's no ridges on the sides. That happens to me quite a bit. When I'm dipping, it gets heavier on the side and I can feel kind of a ridge there. So I just want to make sure that I am taking that down and just getting a really nice smooth, because if I'm rubbing my fingers along it, later on it'll bother me. So okay, you also want to look at the nail this way and make sure that the shape is how you want it. And again, this is all personal preference, so you want to just do it so that you're comfortable with it. like that looks pretty good.
Okay, feels good. I always rub my finger back and forth on it to make sure. Okay, so we're moving on to our next finger. And we're gonna do the exact same thing. It doesn't matter what type of dip you have on here, whether it's a glitter, a chunky glitter, or just a flat color shimmer. You still wanna make sure that you're creating that gradual rise from the sidewall and from the cuticle. Okay, feels good, looks good. Okay, so we'll give those a brush. Okay, then we need another coat of Solidify just to make sure that is hardened up. And then we'll go ahead with our glossy coat. I like the way the Solidify smells. All right, so we're gonna give those just a second here. And I always say my favorite thing about the dip is that once you're done, it takes literally less than 2 minutes to dry. And I love that. Okay, so again, we're gonna go in with the glossy coat on the top. We're gonna do 2 coats. We're gonna put down the first coat. It kind of soaks in a little. It gets kind of matte for those of you who are doing this for maybe the first time. But once we put the second coat on, you'll see it get super glossy. And again, when you're working with the Solidify and the glossy, you want to be careful not to contaminate your glossy with the Solidify. So I am going to wipe this on my paper towel here. Just give it a little wipe before I go back into my glossy for that third nail. And again, that's just, you know, I'm just being careful because the Solidify will make the glossy coat kind of stringy if it gets in there, and then you keep going back and forth. So, you know, better safe than sorry. So we'll go with our final coat of glossy here. All right, see how shiny that got? You see the difference between these two? This one's gonna turn super glossy. Beautiful. Okay, there we go. And in about 2 minutes, those will be just as dry as all these. And we are done with our transitioning out of Valentine's Day manicure. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me today for our super simple goodbye to Valentine's Day manicure with dip 137 You Make My Heart Glow, which is a glow-in-the-dark color from Sparkle & Co., and dip 127 Charcoal Fierce. I love this mani. Super simple, but just a nice way to say goodbye to the Valentine's Day season. You know how much I love reds and pinks and glitter, of course. I just wanted to remind you that if you are new to Sparkle & Co. and you'd like to check them out, they have a fantastic referral program. They have a wonderful subscription box, first of all. This subscription, or bag, I guess I should say, it comes with the bag. They have lots of different levels. They're coming out with new stuff. Every month I am blown away. In fact, I actually have my next month's bag ready to open. So I'll be posting a unboxing very, very shortly here for you. If you subscribe to any of the bags that are $29.95 or $29.99 or up, you do get a referral bonus if you put the name of the person who referred you. If I'm the one who is introducing you to Sparkle & Co., feel free to use my name. If you subscribe to the subscription bag with my name, Cathee DeSoto, I'll put it down in the show notes for you as well. If you put that in the notes at the end of your subscription order, you and I will each get a $15 credit for the Sparkle & Co. website. In addition to that, when you place your first order for Sparkle & Co., because I know you're going to get hooked just like I was, we will each get a $9 credit to use on the Sparkle & Co. website if you put my name in the notes for your first order. So if you haven't ordered from Sparkle & Co. before and you're interested in their stuff, check out their website, sparkleandco.com. Beautiful, beautiful products. I am loving it. I'm so addicted. I've been using them since only December. It's now just coming to the end of February. I've got like almost 80 colors already. Love it. Love, love, love their products. So check them out, and make sure that you share this with your friends who love to do their nails, and also make sure that you give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the content. Comment below. Tell me what you like, what you don't like. Are there things that you want to see? Do you want me to try something new with dip, with stamping? Hit me up in the comments and I'll be happy to see what I can do about getting a video made for you. Also, really important, don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss any upcoming content. Thanks so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time on the Maniac.